The Boruto manga has pretty much changed the concept of what we consider strong within the Naruto universe. We now have characters who can wield the planet's chakra, create worlds from nothingness, and even ones who can surpass the very constraints of the universe itself. This didn't happen overnight. The power ceiling gradually increased over the course of each installment, and Boruto Two Blue Vortex is no different. So today we're gonna rank the top 15 strongest characters within the Boruto manga. This will mostly consist of characters that appeared in Two Blue Vortex, and if you've read the recent installment, you'd understand why that's the case. Oh, and by the way, this is purely based on who is the strongest, not who would win. So keep that in mind as we go through the list. With that said, let's get into the video. So at number 15 we have Konohamaru. Now this one might seem surprising to some since Konohamaru doesn't have the best reputation when it comes to power scaling, though when you get to Two Blue Vortex he actually has some great feats against some of the top tier combatants such as Hidari. This was shown in chapter 11 when he tried to attack him from behind using his Rasengan, but Hidari was then able to teleport behind him and then try to attack him with Sasuke's Chidori. Now under any normal circumstance Konohamaru would have been destroyed by this jutsu, but for some reason he wasn't. You see, not only was he able to react to Hidari, but he was also able to block the technique using his new wind style Rasengan called Rasengan Barricade. And I want you guys to understand how insane this feat is. Hidari is pretty much a Jurified version of Sasuke who has feats against Sarada and Boruto himself. So for him to be able to react to his Chidori at point blank range without the aid of a Sharingan is pretty impressive speed wise. He also has the attack potency to tank the attack itself while reducing the impact on his own body. Though this doesn't scale him to Hidari in any sense since he was blown away by the attack itself, which means that his attack potency isn't on Hidari's level or it would have cancelled out. With that said, he was able to block Hidari's Chidori stream later on in chapter 12, but it's less powerful than a normal Chidori. Now he also has other abilities such as the multi-shadow clone jutsu, sealing techniques, toad and monkey summonings, along with being able to use lightning and fire release. Also, given the fact that his opponent will be the Matsuri Shinju who was able to defeat Gaara, he has to scale to them in some way. So I think number 15 on the list makes the most sense.
I'll protect them, no matter what! Rasengan!
Now at number 14 we have Mitsuki. You see, this one stems from the fact that he has 0 scalable feats in Two Blue Vortex. So far his fight with Boruto was him getting toyed with and blitzed multiple times without Boruto going all out while in base, and he was in Sage mode by the way. Now granted, this is Boruto of course, so he was never going to win, but the degree to which he lost massively downscales him below anyone else on the list. Now some would argue that Mitsuki is stronger than Kawaki based on him saying that Kawaki is no match for Boruto, yet he believed that he could defeat him by letting loose. And while this may be the case, I'm not sure if we could use those statements to come to that conclusion. Mainly because Boruto outright says that Mitsuki doesn't stand a chance against him if Kawaki doesn't, which means that he believes that Mitsuki in Sage mode is still weaker than Kawaki. And also because he later said that Mitsuki thought he came prepared to die, when in fact he's just desperate, which means that Mitsuki showing up to fight him, even though he thinks Boruto far surpasses Kawaki, is it because he thought he would do better in that fight, but mostly because he wanted to confirm his feelings regardless of the outcome. So by all accounts, we have no idea where Mitsuki scales in comparison to Kawaki or anyone else for that matter, but we know for sure that he scales significantly below base Boruto even in Sage mode. Though what I will say is that he does have some cool abilities such as Snake Sage Clones, Shadow Snake Assault, and even Snake Lightning, all of which would be useful against the next person on this list if Mitsuki gets a tad bit stronger. Now at number 13 we have the Shinki Shinju named Ryu. Now this one might seem a tad bit weird, but there's a reason for it. See, the scaling between these Shinjus is somewhat complicated because while I do think the power level of these entities is somewhat influenced by the person they copied, I think it more so has to do with how long they've been a tree. This makes perfect sense given the fact that the bug Shinju is so powerful that it was able to overpower Boruto, even though the person he copied was just a normal human with no powers. Then you also have the fact that his target is the most powerful of all of them, that being Ada, a cyborg stated to be above Chiken levels of power. So if the logic stands, the Shinki Shinju would be the weakest among them since he was just recently created. Now there's a big difference of course between being weak and being the weakest amongst a certain group. Shinki himself was regarded as one of the most promising ninjas of his generation, even establishing somewhat of a rivalry with Boruto earlier on in the series. Now Shinki has always been overpowered and a tad bit unquantifiably so. This was shown when he was able to keep up with Isshiki Otsutsuki back in episode 127. The same person Gaara and Sasuke had issues with even before Sasuke's chakra got stolen. With that said, in a one-on-one fight, Shinki isn't beating Isshiki, but being able to react to him and damage him does upscale him quite a bit. I would argue that he's significantly stronger than Mitsuki even in Sage mode. This is absolutely valid given the fact that Mitsuki in part 1 claimed that he wasn't sure if his Sage mode would be strong enough to beat Shinki. And while that statement obviously doesn't apply to the current power level of these characters, it does imply that the potential of Shinki can indeed scale to Sage Mitsuki, and possibly even above that. Then you have the issue of his sand, which is most definitely one of the top 3 defenses in the entire franchise.
Now show me your power. I quit.
Now at number 12, we have the Matsuri Shinju. Now this character was created using the chakra of Moegi, which means that she must also possess the ability to use water and earth release. It's even possible that she's able to use wood release since Moegi also possessed that ability. Then again, wood release is the natural Kikigenkai of the Ten Tails, so it's not really an additive. With that said, we have seen her use earth release to capture Boruto, but it wasn't really a scalable feat since he was kinda caught off guard. Her best feat was her seemingly no diffing Gaara, since she has no damages whatsoever in that panel. Though it could be the case that she went to heal similar to Hidari, but based on what we know so far, Gaara just got absolutely washed, and so did Shinki and his teammates. So using those feats along with the fact that she was created before the Shinki Shinju, she's likely slightly more powerful, or at least somewhat relative to the Shinki Shinju. She would also easily scale above Konohamaru since from an artist standpoint, she needs to be stronger than him to be a threat to him and Team 10. Now at number 11, we have Sarada. This might seem a bit odd, but it does make sense within the context of her feats displayed in Two Blue Vortex. You see, Sarada's main claim to fame would be her fight against Hidari in chapter 10, where she was pretty much able to dodge Hidari's Chidori at point blank range using the benefits of her Sharingan. This then led to Hidari getting tagged by Sarada's own Chidori, which shows that she has the attack potency capable of damaging him. Now there's a reason why the Chidori is used in conjunction with the Sharingan. That's because the ability amps your speed beyond what your eyes can naturally perceive, so it leaves you open to counterattacks. That is why Minato told Kakashi to never use it again, and it was only resurrected after Obito gave him his Sharingan. This allowed Kakashi to perceive his environments while he was moving at such speeds, thus not being vulnerable to counterattacks. So Hidari in this instance wasn't aware of that, so he charged in and didn't anticipate Sarada being able to take advantage of that weakness, whilst also incorporating her own Sharingan to aid in dodging his attack. And no, the Renegon doesn't have the same perception prowess of the Sharingan, which is why Sasuke still uses his Sharingan to locate a shrunken Jigen, and also anytime he uses the Chidori. With that said, Sarada was fast enough to take advantage of this weakness, so it does upscale her to being at least relative to Hidari in some capacity. This is very important given the fact that Boruto clashed with Hidari in chapter 4 and they both cancelled each other's jutsus. This simply means that Hidari is at least high-end relative or somewhat close in power to Boruto, which is why his attack potency can cancel out Boruto's. Now this is assuming Boruto was going all out, but it was later confirmed that his goal was to kill the Sasuke Shinju, so I don't see why he would be holding back. What I will say is that the negative effects of the Chidori might be a bigger factor in Sarada's feat, since the writer made it a point to focus on it. Along with the fact that Konohamaru's feat of reacting to and blocking Hidari's Chidori is way more impressive, given the fact that he doesn't have a Sharingan. Now I'm sure no one will use that feat to say Konohamaru is on the same level of Boruto, so I don't see why we should do it for Sarada. With that said, she was able to stun Hidari using her Chidori stream in chapter 12, but that's more so due to the status effect of the ability rather than the attack potency. The same way Konohamaru got knocked back by Hidari's Chidori, but was able to block his Chidori stream. And we also saw that Sarada herself got paralyzed by this ability in chapter 11 as well. So it's more so about the ability causing your body to misinterpret the lightning nature as electrical signals from the nerves, making the muscle contract, thus causing the stunning effect. This was explained back in Shippuden. With that said, she does have more impressive feats and narrative value than anyone I've mentioned before this, so that's why she's above them on this list. Now at number 10, we have Code, the great above Jigen level threat that's constantly used as a punching bag for villains and non-villains alike. So it wasn't surprising to find out that this is still the case in Two Blue Vortex. I mean, the manga began with Boruto literally stomping on his face, which is just a different level of disrespect. Now on a power level basis, it did seem like he was relative to Boruto base to base, since he was able to react to him and block his attacks. Though there's this one instance where Boruto teleported behind him, he looked him in the eye and still blitzed him, thus landing his Rasengan. Mind you, at this point in the fight, Code had his Karma Seal active, whereas Boruto was still in base. So even though they might be relative, Boruto is clearly stronger. Now some people use the fact that Code tanked Isshiki as a way to upscale him, but given the fact that we know Boruto held back since he wasn't trying to kill him, it's kinda hard to determine where he scaled specifically since we have no idea how much Boruto held back. So the feat itself is unquantifiable, so it doesn't add anything to the conversation. Now Code is greater than Jigen in power, but it was also stated that he should still be below Isshiki even after his limiters were removed. Now some people like to ignore this statement by saying that there's no way Shikamaru would know this, when it's pretty clear that he likely got the information from Naruto and Amado since he said he was told. Also, the writer wouldn't include the statement for no reason. It's clear that he's simply conveying through the characters where Code actually scales in power. With that said, the last time we saw Code, he was getting choked by the Shinki Shinju. Granted, he was in base, so it doesn't really change anything for the Shinki scaling. We also saw Jura pretty much one-shot him and remove one of his hands, so it's definitely not stronger than Jura. So at this point in the series, his placement on this list makes the most sense. Now at number 9, we have Kawaki, the Okage killer, the great apostle of destruction. Now number 9 might seem crazy, but he doesn't have that many feats in Two Blue Vortex. We know that he definitely scales above Mitsuki based on Boruto's statements, but we also know that he scales significantly below Boruto based on him getting one-tapped by him. Now Jura also two-pieced him while he had his Karma Seal active, and he also got blitzed by a claw grind. With that said, the other fact that Amado placed limiters on his offensive abilities, just enough that he should be able to handle code level threats as stated by Boruto. This means that Kawaki, even while limited, should still be somewhat relative to code, while also having his defense and regen adjusted to above maximum levels. Though that clearly wasn't enough to not get two-pieced by Jura and one-shot by base Boruto. So Kawaki's just pure attack potency and no defense, regardless of whether he has limiters or not. With that said, this also confirms that Kawaki isn't above Isshiki levels of power as yet, since his power has been significantly limited by Amado. Mind you, it specifically said offensive abilities, which would include Ishiki's rods. The same rods people use to scale anyone who dodges them above Baryon mode Naruto and Isshiki, which now clearly wasn't true since he had limiters. Now some would argue that we have no idea where he scales with these limiters since he could still be stronger than Isshiki, but it's pretty clear that he isn't, since he wasn't certain that he could defeat a battered Code in chapter 4. The same Code the story says is above Jigen, but still weaker than Isshiki. Now of course you could ignore all of this and still say that he's stronger than Isshiki, as I'm sure some people will, but for now nothing really supports it.
That's right. The age of Shinobi is over.
Now at number 6, we have Hidari, and his scaling is pretty much tied to Sarada's. As I said before, he's clearly stronger than Konohamaru since his Chidori sent him flying, while he's clearly somewhat relative to Boruto since Boruto's Rasengan didn't send him flying. He was also able to incapacitate Sarada with his Chidori, but as I mentioned before, that's more so due to the status effect of the ability, not just power output. He does have some perception feats against Kawaki since he was able to dodge his rods in chapter 8, he then reacted to and blocked Kawaki's kick in mid-air and wasn't too affected by it. Though Kawaki was in base, so there's not much you can take from this. What I will say is that these two are somewhat relative or interchangeable, so if you believe Kawaki is stronger than Hidari, that's also fine. So far I think they're more so relative in power, but definitely above the other characters on this list. Now at number 7, we have the Bug Shinju. Now this one might seem a bit out there, but there's a reason for this, of course. You see, despite the fact that Mamushi was created using a chakra for a regular human, he still somehow has the best feats among the Shinju aside from Jura himself. This stems from the fact that he was able to somewhat speed blitz Boruto in chapter 4. And I say somewhat since Boruto was able to react by blocking the attack but not fast enough to outright dodge it. And unlike Kawaki's feat against Hidari, Boruto was standing on the ground and looking directly at Mamushi when it happened, so it wasn't off guard or off balance. Mamushi's just that fast. He then crashed him through multiple structures and even tanked his Chidori stream without getting paralyzed, while Hidari got stunned by Sarada's. Like, he's the only Shinju that got Boruto to have this panic look on his face and run away with FTJ. Then he later caught Boruto's sword in full swing with no problem at all, so this guy is clearly busted. And it makes sense since his target is Ada, a character stated to be greatly above Jigen in power, which also means that he must also find a way to defeat Daemon, who protects Ada. Now this doesn't mean that he has to be stronger than Daemon or Ada, since Ada can't fight, but he has to be somewhat relative in power to them for the matchup to even make sense. So this placement on the list tracks so far. With that said, at number 6 we have Daemon himself. Now Daemon, just like Ada, is one of the cyborgs stated to have greatly surpassed Jigen in power. And of course, he displayed this by folding unlimited code, whose power is scaled greatly above Jigen as well. Now of course, this doesn't mean that Daemon is Isshiki level or above, since you know that code is stated to be below Isshiki while still being greater than Jigen. So there's clearly a big gap between Jigen levels of power and Isshiki levels of power, which means that Daemon can simply just fall somewhere in between that while still being above code. With that said, he doesn't have any feats in Two Blue Vortex since he hasn't done anything, and even though some would argue that he's still stronger than Boruto since he wasn't concerned about Boruto's new power or Uzuhiko, the fact that Boruto went to Kawaki for help against the Shinju instead of him implies that unlimited Kawaki would be stronger than Daemon, which also means that Boruto would also be stronger than Daemon to fight alongside him on equal footing. Though this is assuming that Boruto would be equal to unlimited Kawaki without his Karma Seal and Jogan, even though he needed them to fight him per the timeskip preview. So it could be the case that current base Boruto is significantly weaker than unlimited Kawaki, which wouldn't upscale him to Daemon levels of power. Mind you, I'm talking purely on the basis of power output, since Daemon's reflection ability would be another issue entirely, but this then leads into number 5, which is Boruto himself. You see, this is where I'm sure we'll get some major disagreements in the comments, but this is purely based on what we know so far. Now, as I said before, Boruto revealed that Amado specifically limited Kawaki's offensive abilities, which would include Ishiki's rods. The same rods people use to scale anyone who dodges them to above Baryon mode Naruto and Isshiki, which now clearly wasn't true since he had limiters. And while how much Kawaki has been limited is indeed unquantifiable, we have other events in the manga that implies that him not being on Isshiki levels of power is the more accurate interpretation, such as him not being sure he could defeat a battered code in chapter 4, the same code the story implies to be above Jigen, but still weaker than Isshiki. The fact that Mitsuki said that Boruto being able to defeat code means that Kawaki is no match for him, the same code the story implies to be below Isshiki levels of power. And though some would argue that code somehow trained over the time skip and surpassed Isshiki, that's really just an assumption that can never be proven, especially given the fact that he had no one training him as opposed to Boruto who had Sasuke and Kashin Koji. So while this could go either way, it really does come down to which one is more likely and actually supported in the material. So with that in mind, so far Boruto hasn't done anything that says he's above Isshiki levels of power. He's at best high in relative or slightly stronger and faster than code, which could still be below Isshiki, the same with Daemon. Now just to be clear, we're still talking about base Boruto, which means that he could still likely scale to Isshiki levels or above with his Karma Seal and Jogan later on, which would make sense since he would be fighting an unlimited version of Kawaki.
I'm still a shinobi!
With that said, at number 4 we have Jura. Now this one is pretty clear since Boruto outright said that he can't take him down by himself and that he needs Kawaki's help. Not just any Kawaki by the way, but the unlimited version of him. So this is notwithstanding the fact that he 2-piece Karma Kawaki, wrecked Himawari and one-shot Boruto, though he was an off-guard feat. Either way, Boruto confirmed that he's weaker than him, so it doesn't matter. So this ranking makes perfect sense since he's pretty much the embodiment of the Ten Tails, the leader of the Shinju Koji said killed Boruto in most of the possible futures he saw. So it's pretty clear that he would be stronger than anyone else mentioned before him. Now at number 3 we have Isshiki Otsutsuki himself. Now this guy's power is one of the main factors behind the strength of the Shinjus themselves as stated by Boruto. Though you have other factors such as Shibai's karma arcs code infused into the Ten Tails, the story never attributes their power to some of Shibai's chakra that code may possess, but more so Ishiki's essence within code's karma. And while this guy doesn't exist in Two Blue Vortex, and most of his feats are against less powerful characters like Naruto and Sasuke, his power is confirmed to be massively above Jigen's. So anyone who doesn't have any statement saying that they have surpassed his power level or have any feat supporting that claim simply isn't on his level until proven otherwise. Now I did explain why using characters such as Hidari or Boruto dodging Kawaki's rods doesn't upscale them to his level since Kawaki isn't on Ishiki's level. That could be because he's limited offensively by Amado or because he didn't receive 100% of Ishiki's data. I explained it in this video why Kawaki became full Otsutsuki even though the Karma Seal was erased before he finished extracting. So you can watch that video after this one for full context. The point is that nothing in the story currently points to any of these characters being above Isshiki levels of power, which includes Jura. Now of course I'm not saying that it isn't possible for Jura to be stronger than Isshiki, but his current feats are against characters who don't scale to Isshiki. For all we know, Jura ends up consuming a chakra fruit as indicated in chapter 15, or he goes on to absorb the other Shinju which ends up scaling him above Boruto and Kawaki even after they surpass Isshiki. So too many variables when it comes to working off assumptions instead of what is currently the case. Now before we get to the top 2, we do have some honorable mentions such as Himawari. She now has the power of the Nine Tails along with her latent Byakugan powers displayed earlier on in the series. Even so, the writers decided to test that power against remains one of the strongest characters in the series. So just like Mitsuki, she didn't stand a chance. She did get some good hits in on Jura, but he wasn't really trying at that point in time. He then went on to show the difference in their power level by completely destroying her just a few pages later, which means that we can't use that to scale her anywhere at this point in time. What I will say is that she's certainly above a lot of the characters on the list given Daemon's statement from part 1 about her being able to easily dodge him, though that is more so about potential rather than actual feats, so until then, she remains in honorable mentions. Now another one would be Ada, who is stated to be one of the cyborgs who greatly surpassed Jigen in power. The issue with this is that she was somehow concerned that a karmaless part 1 Kawaki would be enough to kill her, so she had to release Daemon to protect her even though she didn't want to. You also have the fact that she outright stated that she really isn't a fighter, and hasn't been shown to do anything of the sort. So we have no idea what she's able to do physically since power can manifest in different ways within the Naruto universe. So until she has some good feats, she can remain here as well. With that said, at number 2 we have Baryon mode Naruto, which was fairly obvious given Isshiki's placement. Now, I know a lot of people will disagree with this for some reason, but Baryon mode Naruto is indeed stronger and much faster than Isshiki. This was shown multiple times in the fight itself, with Naruto blitzing him multiple times, catching his rods, and even overpowering his jutsus with pure physical might. Not to mention the fact that Kurama outright states that Naruto's power should definitely exceed Isshiki's, which, I mean, like, what else do you need? By the way, this is just like them stating that code should still be below Isshiki, it's placed there for a reason. Now some like to argue that because Isshiki said that Naruto's punches weren't a problem, but more so the effect of draining his chakra, this means that Naruto wasn't stronger than Isshiki, which doesn't make sense whatsoever since we literally saw Naruto easily blocking and slapping away his hits, and once again overpowering his jutsu with pure physical might. With that aside, when Isshiki said that Naruto's punches weren't a problem, it was after Naruto got significantly weaker than he was before due to the drawbacks of Baryon mode, as stated by Sasuke. This is also shown in the fact that his punches weren't throwing Isshiki across the map anymore and clearly had less impact, which is why Isshiki said what he said. Now I'm not saying that Baryon mode Naruto was significantly stronger than Isshiki, since that's not the case, and it's not like he got two-piece like Kawaki did. And just to be clear, I'm not factoring in some hypothetical Isshiki that is somehow stronger than the Isshiki we saw, since that would be unquantifiable. Also, there is no such Isshiki, since he himself confirmed that he was brimming with power upon resurrection, which is why Jigen's body would have expired within a few days. There's this big misconception where people believe that he wasn't at full power because Jigen's body couldn't handle it, but that's not the case. What was actually said is that his power is what's causing Jigen's body to die, not the lack of it. So they needed to prevent him from getting Kawaki's body, since they wouldn't be able to defeat him by waiting on his body to fail him. So disingenuous interpretations aside, it's pretty clear that Baryon mode Naruto was stronger than Isshiki at full power, which is why he's above him on this list.
Bring it on, Otsutsuki. You want to see what true resolve is? I'll show you.
Now coming in at number 1 we have Shibai Otsutsuki. This guy is pretty much a god within the Naruto universe. He attained this power by consuming planet after planet and resurrecting over and over again until he ascended, or at least that's what we're led to believe. What we do know is that cyborgs like Ada, Daemon, and Code derive most of their powers from his cells, which of course scale them above Jigen levels of power. He also possesses the ability of Daemon to reflect attacks, code space-time car marks, and even code his ability to see all possible futures, along with the power to wield omnipotence, which is a programming language the gods use to create worlds and rewrite reality. So even if you want to stay away from the more crazy interpretations of this, which is that he's now a 5th dimensional entity since he ascended to a higher dimensional plane, he's still the strongest character we've seen so far, which would naturally scale him above Isshiki and everyone else on this list. So that's it for this, guys. Let me know what you guys think about it. Do you guys think some of these characters need to be rearranged and moved up and moved down the scale? I know I'm gonna get a lot of disagreements in the comment section, and that's totally fine, but guys, remember to keep it respectful when you guys are debating in the comments, of course. I'm also gonna share this on the community post, so you guys keep it respectful there as well, because I know debates around power scaling can get a bit testy. So yeah, just remember, have fun. This is just anime. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you liked it and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.